My name is Melissa, I'm 29. And that afternoon my sister left my baby with our mother without asking me. If you've ever faced something like this, comment where you're reading from. The air in my apartment still smelled faintly of formula and lavender detergent when I came home from my shift. I kicked off my flats, dropped my tote bag on the counter, and noticed right away the crib was empty. Not nap empty. Gone empty. On the dresser sat his little blue hat, the one with ears folded too neatly. A note in my sister's handwriting, he's fine. With Mom. No time, no call, no context. Just a torn notebook sheet curled at the edges. The silence pressed against my eardrums. No baby coo. Nowhere of the white noise machine. Just the hum of the fridge and the sudden realization that my son had been handed off like a parcel. I grabbed my phone. 3 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. No voicemail. It was 6:18 p.m. My stomach clenched, a cold metallic kind of fear. Because with Mom didn't mean safe. Not after last winter. Not after the night she left a pan burning on the stove while drinking boxed wine. And the smoke alarm screamed until the neighbors called. I tore the note in half, shoved it in my pocket, and snatched up the car keys from the hook by the door. I didn't know yet that within 72 hours, this favor would split our family into before and after. The drive across town was a blur of traffic lights and clenched teeth. I barely remember hitting turn signals. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly the cheap plastic cover left grooves in my palms. Mom lived in a second-floor walk-up off Franklin Avenue. The kind of place where the hallways always smelled like fried onions and bleach. I took the stairs 2 at a time, heart hammering against my ribs. Her door wasn't locked. Pushed it open. The TV blasted some game show rerun. A half-empty glass of rose sweated on the coffee table next to a pack of menthols. And there my baby sprawled on the couch, tiny fists twitching in sleep, one sock half off. My mother wasn't in sight. I found her in the kitchen, hunched over the counter with her phone propped up, laughing at a video. A candle flickered too close to a paper towel roll. The smell of cheap wine and synthetic vanilla candle wax wrapped around me. Where is my sister? My voice cracked sharper than I intended. Without looking up, Mom said. She had errands. Dropped him here. Don't be dramatic. Heat shot through my chest. I told you, you don't get to have him alone. Now she glanced up, narrowed eyes. Melissa, stop acting like I'm a stranger. I raised you. He's safe. Safe. The word hissed in my ears like a lie. I scooped my son up, his small head lolling onto my shoulder, his hair damp with sweat. He smelled like warm milk and sleep. My knees nearly buckled with relief. This isn't happening again, I said quietly. Mom rolled her eyes, exhaled smoke straight toward the sink. Talk to your sister. She knows I'm always here when you're too busy. Too busy. The knife slid in deep, twisting. As if holding down 2 jobs to keep a roof over us meant I didn't care. I didn't argue. I buckled him into his car seat, my hands shaking so badly I fumbled the straps twice. Then I drove home in silence, headlights blurring in my tears. By the time we pulled into my lot, the decision had already begun forming, hard and steady. I wouldn't ask again. I wouldn't beg for respect. I'd make it impossible for them to ignore me. I didn't know yet that the proof would come less than 24 hours later, delivered straight into my inbox. That night I barely slept. My son's tiny breaths rose and fell in the crib beside my bed, but my own chest felt tight, wired, ready for an alarm that never rang. Because this wasn't new. My sister has always acted like she had veto power over my life. When we were kids, she was the golden one. She got the pink bike with tassels. I got the hand-me-down with one pedal cracked. She stayed out late and Mom laughed it off. I came home 10 minutes past curfew and got grounded for a week. And when I tried to call it unfair, Mom would sigh the same line every time. Melissa, you're stronger. She needs more help than you. Stronger. The word that really meant invisible. By the time I was 17, I was the one cooking dinner, juggling babysitting jobs, and patching the holes in our budget with tips from the diner. My sister floated. Prom dress on a credit card. Late phone bills that I ended up covering because Mom said, "We're family. You'll understand." Adulthood didn't fix it. I moved into my own apartment, scraped together an associate's degree, and got work at a logistics company. Not glamorous but steady. Meanwhile, my sister hopped between boyfriends and temp jobs, always with some new crisis. Rent due, car repair, overdraft fee. And mom kept wiring her money, sometimes mine too, siphoned from family accounts I didn't even know I was attached to until the letters came. When my son was born 2 years ago, I thought maybe things would shift. That they'd see me not just as the strong one but as a mother, someone whose rules mattered. For a while it seemed like they did. They cooed over him, bought him onesies, posted pictures. But slowly the cracks showed. One afternoon last winter, I came to pick him up and found him strapped in his stroller, on the back porch in 40-degree weather, while mom smoked inside, scrolling her tablet. His cheeks were red, nose running. She waved me off. He was fine. I checked every 10 minutes. That was the moment I drew my line. No more unsupervised babysitting. I said it clearly, firmly. I thought they'd heard me. But yesterday proved otherwise. My sister had decided she could override me, just like always. And this time it wasn't about bikes or curfews. It was about my child's safety. I couldn't just rely on my word anymore. I needed proof, dates, details, something undeniable. What I didn't know was that by breakfast the next morning, the first undeniable piece of evidence would land in my inbox with a subject line that made my hands go cold. The email came at 8:42 a.m. just as I was spooning applesauce into my son's bowl. The subject line read, "FYI, saw this last night." It was from a coworker I barely talked to outside the office, which made it even stranger. I tapped it open, my fingers slick with applesauce. Attached was a screenshot. First line, Bank of Franklin transfer confirmation. Date, September 19th. Amount, $150. From mom's account to my sister's account. Memo, thanks for watching him yesterday. The timestamp, 6:27 p.m. Exactly when I was at work, exactly when my son had been left in that smoky apartment. Beneath the screenshot was a second image. Their text exchange also screenshotted. Mom, don't tell Melissa. She'll make it a big deal. My sister, relax. She doesn't have to know. It was just one night. My stomach turned so fast I had to grip the edge of the counter. The spoon clattered into the sink. I zoomed in on the memo line again, on the words "thanks for watching him." My baby reduced to a line item in their quiet little deal. They hadn't just ignored me. They colluded, paid each other off like I was some inconvenient obstacle. I printed the screenshot immediately, the paper still warm as I pulled it from the tray. I laid it flat on the table next to my son's sippy cup. He gurgled happily, banging his spoon against the high chair tray. Applesauce smeared across his cheeks. Innocent. Unaware. Mine. And for the first time I felt something new, beyond fear, beyond anger. A cold, clean clarity. This wasn't about family politics anymore. This was about guardianship, safety, the right to decide who my child is with and when. I slid the paper into a folder, next to the notes I'd been scribbling in my journal. December backyard incident, March patio lunch, June wrong name while drunk. But this was different. This wasn't just memory. It was evidence. I sat there, fingers pressed against the paper until they left faint creases. Then I whispered it aloud so I wouldn't forget. I make a choice. The choice wasn't to argue, not to beg, not to scream. The choice was to act. By mid-morning I couldn't sit still. The screenshot burned a hole in my folder, daring me to doubt it. If I confronted them now, they'd spin it like they always had. Melissa, you're imagining things. Melissa, you're tired. Melissa, you should be grateful we help at all. So instead I drove to someone who had no stake in family drama. Our old neighbor. A steady guy who worked as an accountant at a small firm. He'd known me since I was in high school and still called me kiddo, even though I had a toddler on my hip now. We met at a coffee shop that smelled like scorched beans and sugar syrup. I slid into the booth, pulled the paper from my folder, and laid it flat between us. He adjusted his glasses, scanned the lines, and nodded slowly. That's a legitimate transfer confirmation, not a mock-up. The metadata checks out: date, transaction ID, routing numbers partially masked. Someone at your mom's bank could confirm, but honestly you don't need them to. This is solid. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug of drip coffee, grounding myself. So I'm not crazy. They really paid her to take him, even though I told them. My voice caught. He cut in gently. Melissa, listen. The amount doesn't matter. What matters is the intent. They arranged childcare behind your back, paid for it, and then agreed to keep it secret. That's not support. That's collusion. The word hit me like a gavel. Collusion. What do I do with this? I asked. He leaned forward, voice low. Document everything. Print backups. Email copies to yourself. If you ever need to go to family court, you'll need a paper trail. And don't tip them off that you have this. If they realize you're collecting evidence, they'll scramble to cover tracks. My throat felt raw, but I nodded. He added one more thing, softer this time. And talk to a lawyer. You've got grounds to restrict custody. Protect your son first, deal with their outrage later. I sat back, the cafe noise fading around me, the hiss of steam, clink of cups, chatter of strangers. On the table between us lay the page, edges curling slightly, a piece of paper that had just changed everything. When I slid it back into the folder, I felt calmer than I had in months. Because now it wasn't just my word against theirs. It was black and white proof. And in 4 days I already had an appointment with a family lawyer. The lawyer's office was 3 flights up in a narrow building with flickering fluorescent lights. The waiting room smelled faintly of paper and lemon cleaner. I sat with the folder on my lap, my scribbled notes, the printed screenshot, the daycare contract, all trembling slightly in my hands, though I kept my face still. When they called me in, I laid it all out. The backyard incident. The unsanctioned drop-off. The bank transfer with the memo line that read like a slap. Thanks for watching him yesterday. The lawyer didn't roll his eyes. He didn't sigh like Mom always did. He leaned forward, scanned the page, and said evenly, "This is strong. It shows intent, secrecy, and money changing hands for unauthorized care. That puts liability on them. More importantly, it shows they ignored your explicit wishes. You can file for an injunction." He explained it step by step. A petition for temporary custody restrictions, filed through family court. Once approved, it would legally bar both Mom and my sister from having my son unsupervised. No wiggle room, no excuses. If they tried again, it would count as contempt. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt procedural. Pen scratching on forms, signatures on dotted lines, a notary stamp thunking down. At one point, the copier jammed and the paralegal cursed under her breath. I almost laughed at the banality of it. How something that felt like my whole life unspooling was to them just paperwork. By 2:15 p.m. It was filed. Case number assigned, receipt tucked into my folder. My lawyer looked me square in the eye. Expect resistance. They'll call you ungrateful. They'll paint you as unstable. Stay calm. Facts are on your side. That evening I drove straight to Mom's building. My sister's dented Corolla was already out front. I went upstairs, knocked. They let me in, both of them sitting in the stale living room. Mom with a glass of wine, my sister with her arms crossed like she was waiting to win an argument. I set the folder on the coffee table and flipped it open to the screenshot. Recognize this? My sister's smirk faltered. That's private. It stopped being private when it involved my son, I said evenly. Then I pulled out the new page, crisp and stamped with the court seal. This is the injunction. As of this week, neither of you have unsupervised access. It's not negotiable. For a second, silence. Only the radiator hissed. Mom's voice broke first, thin with disbelief. You take your own family to court? I gathered the folder, slipped the papers back in, and stood. I'll do whatever it takes to protect him. End of story. I walked out, leaving them in that stunned silence. And for the first time the balance tilted. The approval text from my lawyer came the next morning at 9:42 a.m. Sharp. Injunction granted. Effective immediately. Keep the certified copy with you. I printed 3. One for my purse, one for the glove box, one slipped under the tray in the kitchen drawer where I keep spare batteries and band-aids. The first ripple hit by lunchtime. Daycare called. Hi, Melissa. We just got the notice from the court. So, to confirm, only you or written alternates you authorize can pick up your son now, correct? Yes, I said. My voice didn't shake, though my fingers pinched the phone tight. No exceptions. At 4:05 p.m. I pulled into the daycare lot just in time to see my sister striding up to the entrance. Sunglasses, loud voice on the phone like she belonged there. She didn't see me until the receptionist handed her the new policy. I'm sorry, the staffer said, gently but firmly. You're not on the authorized list. My sister's voice rose. That's ridiculous. I'm family. She doesn't get to decide everything. She does, the receptionist corrected. That's when she spotted me. Her face turned sharp as glass. You did this. I didn't answer. I just signed the clipboard, lifted my son into my arms and walked past her. His little hands clutched at my sweater, his hair still damp from afternoon water play, smelling faintly of sunscreen and crayons. Back at home, my phone lit up with missed calls. Mom's number. My sister's. Then finally a voicemail from Mom, her voice shaking with fury. Melissa, I can't believe you'd humiliate us like this. Dragging family into court, making us look like criminals. You're tearing this family apart. I sat at the kitchen table with my son on my lap, his tiny fingers trying to steal bites of my toast. The certified copy of the injunction lay on the table beside us, black ink sharp against the white paper. I pressed my palm flat against it and felt the calm roll in. That night, I typed one short message into the family group chat. All decisions about my son go through me. No exceptions. No secrets. Respect this or the next step will not be civil court, it will be criminal. Your choice. No emojis. No softening. Just fact. The typing bubbles appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then nothing. The silence after was different this time. Not absence. Not fear. Authority. It arrived 3 days later, slipped under my apartment door in a plain white envelope. No name, no return address. Just my name scrawled in rushed block letters. Inside was a single sheet of printer paper, clearly a screenshot printed straight from a phone. A text thread between Mom and my sister. Mom, she'll calm down. Just keep saying it was to give her a break. Don't mention the money. My sister. But what if daycare staff talks? She already made it legal. Mom. Then we say she's unstable. Stressed, single mom. Overreacting. People will believe it. My throat went dry. Instability. Overreacting. The same story they'd used my whole life, now typed out in black and white, proof of the smear they were preparing. That night my sister called. I almost let it ring, but some part of me wanted to hear it straight from her mouth. You're blowing this way out of proportion, she said immediately, voice sharp, defensive. Mom and I were trying to help. You're exhausted, you work too much. Everyone sees it. Everyone. I asked evenly. You think a $150 transfer makes us criminals? She snapped. You think one injunction makes you the better parent? I let silence stretch until she cracked. Then I said, I know about the texts. About the plan to call me unstable. About the lie you were going to spread. Her breath caught. For once she didn't have a comeback. You can keep spinning, I continued. But every word is documented now. Every transfer, every message. If you try to smear me, it goes to my lawyer. Then the judge. And you'll answer under oath. Her voice faltered. You'd really drag us through a trial? You already set it in motion, I said, and ended the call. Afterward, I walked into my son's room. He was curled in his toddler bed, breathing evenly, his stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. I smoothed his blanket, felt the steady rise and fall of his chest. There was no going back. The gap wasn't a rift anymore, it was a canyon. And I was done building bridges. 2 months later, the storm had quieted. No more surprise knocks. No more voicemail tirades. Just silence. And this time it felt like peace, not punishment. The injunction held. The follow-up order from family court spelled it out in black and white. I'm the sole guardian, all visits supervised, everything scheduled through me. It's not revenge. It's structure. And structure keeps my son safe. Life has settled into something smaller, steadier. Mornings mean oatmeal at the kitchen table, his little spoon clattering against the bowl. Evenings mean toy cars racing across the rug, bathwater splashing onto the floor, bedtime books read twice because he always asks for again. My phone stays mostly quiet, and when it lights up, it's for daycare reminders or grocery lists. Not my sister's demands, not Mom's guilt. I ran into Mom once at the grocery store. She stood in front of the canned tomatoes, her perfume too sweet, her face tight. She opened her mouth like she might say something. I just nodded, polite but distant, and walked on. Boundaries don't always look like slammed doors. Sometimes they're just the decision not to reopen old conversations. At home, I keep my folder tucked neatly in the bottom drawer. Injunction copies, printed transfers, those ugly texts. Proof. Not because I read them anymore, but because they remind me I wasn't imagining it. That clarity matters. Tonight, after my son fell asleep with his stuffed rabbit under his chin, I sat at the table with a fresh notebook. I flipped to the first page and wrote, "Next 6 months. Swimming lessons, a weekend trip to the coast, steady hours at work, more evenings unplugged. No drama. Just plans. Just life." I closed the notebook, set it aside, and listened to the quiet hum of the fridge. My world is smaller now, but it's cleaner. And for the first time in years, it's mine. I don't need apologies. I don't need them to change. My son and I already have what we need. Safety, clarity, and each other. And that's enough.